Got you loud and clear. Nice shirt. Is that a baseball tee? Tug it at my heartstrings. Mm-hmm. How's that? Okay, let me back it up a little bit. Okay. To go to that product or anything in general? No, that's fine for now. My website still isn't built yet. They're promising me within the next couple of weeks, so hopefully soon. Yeah. It's been busy. I had my first training client at 7 a.m. Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays are usually my pretty busy in-person days. Yeah. But we just, what's that? Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. We just opened escrow on a house on Monday, too. So, yeah, I just bought my first house. Yeah. Yeah. So that's been a fun process. Hopefully closing by June 22nd. Yeah. 4 hours to open escrow on Monday. That was a lot of fun. That's quick. Yeah. Well, to open it, I was going back and forth between the law office and the title agency for 4 hours. Yeah. Yeah. Like there goes my whole entire Monday afternoon. No, no. Luckily, the seller is a really great guy. He's been super helpful with it all. But just it was fun having like $2,000 worth of rent come out of my account, and then 30 seconds later having $4,000 of earnest money come out of my account. Oh, oh, thank you. Great. I mean, no, not a lot of money all came out. Oh, beauty of technology. Nothing's ever safe, is it?
Welcome everybody to our Live at 5, and we have a very special guest with us today. As you can see, Dr. Matt Zanis is here with us. We just did our last episode with him, so he has graciously joined us for some live Q&As because we got a lot of response from y'all about questions that we simply couldn't answer. So we decided to bring him on. Matt, thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope I could actually provide something useful.
Yeah,
you guys
well,
can.
we hope
so we'll
this
see.
goes good because you're our first guest on a live, so.
Oh, all right. I'm the guinea pig.
And our camera's gonna die. Bear with us.
Come on, David.
Yeah, we're always just fully prepared for the lives at 5s, you know.
Hey, no, we're just rolling with it. It's okay.
Hold on.
Plug it in. Let's get some juice. I'll just stand here and try and look pretty.
All right, we are good.
All right. We could talk about my new hairstyle if you want to do that in the
let's
meantime.
do that.
So have you ever seen the Netflix series The Witcher?
Oh, yeah, and read the books.
Yeah. Oh, you read it was in a video game too, I think.
It was, yeah, and I played those.
Yeah. So I am rocking like half pony, kind of half down. I just lost my mic, so hang tight.
But we can still hear you.
All right, there we go. Yeah.
So Matt,
So,
for everybody
hybrid.
or some people that may not have listened to the episode yet, tell us who you are, what you do, kind of like a summary of our episode that we had and what we're talking about today.
So I won't go into the 2-hour-long intro that we had then. Okay. So I am a doctor of physical therapy, a strength conditioning coach, and a movement expert out of Phoenix, Arizona. Originally from Northeast Pennsylvania, though. So I am an avid hunter, been shooting guns and bows from a very early age, played baseball for a very long time, and went through a lot of injuries myself, which is how I found myself moving down this route of physical therapy, which actually took me out here to Arizona, where I opened up my own practice back in 2015.
Very cool.
And currently traveling around with you guys as well.
Yeah, I was going to
On
say
the
the coolest
USA
part
shooting
of your,
circuit.
coolest part
That
of your
is.
job is getting to travel around with Team USA.
Great group of guys and girls to work with. Can't complain.
Well, Matt, we've had a lot of people so far that have been able to listen to the episode that have sent us emails, text messages on social media about how informative your episode was. And
thank you.
So, yeah, I mean, more than anyone so far. And I think you brought a really interesting take on shooting. I mean, I know a lot of the stuff that we talked about. What was one of my favorite particular parts was some of the stuff that you got into, where most people would kind of prescribe a psychological approach to like the mental game, but you were explaining the biological and physical reasoning behind it. That kind of just absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah.
But so for those of you guys watching now, I'm bringing all of that up because if you have not watched Matt's episode, it's the most previous non-live podcast that we've released.
Episode 8?
Yeah, episode
8.
Yeah, episode 8. Go
The
and
Ocho.
watch that. Yeah, because watch or listen to
Yeah.
it, because it is honestly really good, and it's really unique. I mean, like I just said, you brought a really cool twist to everything. But let's see, we already are getting questions. So if we want,
Here we
if we
go.
want to get into the questions, so here's
Do we
what
want some warm-up questions first, or are we going to go deep right away?
I don't know. We'll see what the first one we have. This is from Thomas Allen. He says, what additional movement practice would you recommend for a skeet shooter whose primary form of exercise is powerlifting?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's kind of like really near and dear to my heart because I do have a really strong strength conditioning background. I did a little bit of Olympic lifting and powerlifting back in my early 20s as well. And there's a lot of really great components to being strong. Like there's an old saying that strong people are harder to kill. Oh, here we go with the one-liners again. Just already busting them out. That's a Mark Ripito line if anybody knows who he is. He's a strength coach. I'm not sure where he's located anymore. But anyway, so yes, stronger people are harder to kill, meaning you are more resilient and you're more durable, having the ability to handle more resistance, essentially. However, what we have to be aware of with shooting is that it makes really, really strong, powerful hips. So powerlifting creates really strong posterior chain, which is essentially your hips, hamstrings, glutes, everything in and around that area. And what we end up doing is creating a very large power transmission house in that area. It's kind of like the transmission of your car, but it becomes more powerful than the ability of our tendons and our ligaments to actually transmit that force. So it's okay to be able to do that. It shouldn't be like the mainstay of it if you're not also incorporating a lot of higher endurance work into the feet and the ankles, which we actually covered a lot of in that episode, and then also into the knees as well. Because in reality, they need to be able to transmit the force through the rest of the body, which we know is then going to carry over into how well that you handle the gun. So if you have really, really strong, powerful hips, that you don't have a great connection point from the ground, you're going to have a lot of force behind them, and it's going to make the mechanics of the gun transfer that much more difficult to achieve. So it's going to be less smooth and a little bit more wonky.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we got another. Let me ask you one before I read the next one. How much of this is a little bit off topic, but I guess it somewhat involves that question. Is there a good way to learn to like consciously isolate muscle groups, if that makes sense, while you're trying to learn movement? Because I got this question from a student of mine after he listened to your podcast, and he was wondering, I like to work on that, but it's so hard for me to understand what little part of my body I'm using to move when I'm trying to pay attention to something else. So is there a good answer to that question or no?
I would answer that question with another question and be asking, why do you think you need to actually consciously move a very specific part of your body? Because when it comes down to it, that creates a lot more brain power that you have to actually utilize, which is going to take away from the efficiency of your movement. So I get a little sciencey on you as well. There's this portion of the brain called your reticular activating system, your RAS, and in its most simplistic form, that part of the brain is used to transfer the stimuli from the rest of your body, so your subconscious mind to your conscious mind. And there are three main areas in which it transfers information, allows it to pass through, essentially through the filter. The first one is for survival. The second one is for your dreams. And the third one is for, let me see if I can get this right now. Of course, my mind is blanking on it at this point.
You're on the clock now.
No
Wow.
pressure.
Oh, God. Yeah. So we got survival, we've got dreams, and identity. There it is. The third one is identity. Sorry, there's a lot going on up in here. Sometimes it gets scrambled around. So the big part about that is, let's just say, for example, that you're going into a shooting or a practice or a training session and you're hungry, right? Or you haven't gotten a lot of sleep. Those are both very, very basic human functions that are needed for survival. So if the brain is then constantly working on why am I haven't eaten, why haven't I gotten enough water, why am I not hydrated, why haven't I gotten enough sleep, it's going to be processing all that information, which means it can't subconsciously process the movement patterns needed for shooting, which is actually what makes you smooth and efficient. So kind of tying that back into the isolating movement patterns, our brain doesn't work in isolation. It works in patterns. And if we try to isolate muscle groups, it's the same type of thing where we're working way too hard at trying to get our brain to think about exactly what it is that we're doing versus just doing it. So like when I'm coaching somebody, I'll usually give them the starting point of a movement pattern, point A, and then the ending point of the movement pattern, point B. I don't tell them how to get from point A to point B. I want their brain to try and figure it out. And once I see them try and figure it out, they make mistakes. We offer some feedback, we learn from those mistakes, and that's how we progress with things. Now, when we're actually using a program to improve our movement literacy, so to speak, it's also important that we are trying to get carryover effects from the gym, so from that safe training environment over onto the range or onto the field, right? We want the skills to carry over. So that's why it's important that if you're trying to do things to improve your movement patterns, trying to get stronger, like with the powerlifting, that you're also practicing alongside of it. It's when we use them as two separate silos and we create a dichotomy there, that's where we get kind of lost in translation and our brain can't figure out how to actually assimilate them together.
That's
that making sense?
So let's say, I guess for somebody that's trying to learn a totally new movement, so you're saying that a good way of teaching them how to do it is to kind of show them the starting point, show them the finishing point, and then correct their mistakes along the way?
Well, let them figure out their mistakes along the way. And then you kind of offer the feedback based where they're getting stuck, essentially. Because there's no failure in life, there's only feedback. And it's whether or not you actually are aware enough to become aware of the feedback and actually make a transition from it, like make a decision, take an action step away from it to be able to improve yourself, to grow and to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, another question. This is Tom Childress. Also, by the way, we have to thank William Edgman for subscribing while you were talking, Matt. So thank you, Will. So Tom, he says, Matt, for a guy in his 70s, would it be more practical to use weight machines instead of free weights? I also bought an e-bike to work on cardio. What are your thoughts?
Ooh. Okay, so big picture is that we would not want to be working on we would not want to be working on machine weights. We'd be wanting to go more towards the realm of the free weights. And there's a very specific reason why, and that has to do with our trunk or our core, right? So everything between the neck and the pelvis. And we sit on a machine, we are once again isolating movement patterns without the ability of our trunk to gain control and stability over them. So what we end up doing is, just like with the powerlifting scenario, we end up developing these really strong muscles, and our trunk doesn't know how to coordinate it. So that's not going to translate over very well into shooting. Also, from a balance standpoint, as we age, we know balance is one of those things that starts to deteriorate.
Yeah.
So working with free weights and learning how to reposition our center of mass, our center of gravity over our base of support is going to help with the balance components as well, to prevent us from actually degrading our balance capabilities and tripping and falling later in life, right? Because how many people actually remember grandpa kind of shuffling along?
Yeah.
Right. Those small little gait patterns, that's what tends to happen. We start to isolate and we narrow the base of support. And when we do that, it's out of a protective mechanism.
Yeah. And
in doing so, we actually decrease our balance capabilities.
Wow.
So I would much rather not even use weights and use the effects of gravity, like we talked about last time, and learning how to control our joints against gravity into these big movement patterns, which is now going to widen our boundaries of stability and make you a stronger, more balanced individual.
That's really cool.
That's so interesting to me.
So there is a time and a place for isolation, but we typically see that in the very beginning stages of rehabilitation. And then the quicker that we can progress and move on after that, the better.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. Like think about bodybuilders, for example. Really great physiques, but move like shit.
Yeah.
They're like robots.
Yeah, very true.
They're not, they're athletes in their own right because of the dedication, the hard work it takes to actually get a physique like that and go get up on stage and pose and do all that. But from an athleticism standpoint, the brain doesn't like that.
Yeah.
And we start to lower our athleticism skills.
That makes a lot of sense. When that happens, Matt, not only are you isolating movement, but are you losing control, like in more of a finesse aspect?
Yeah, exactly. And that comes from the neural aspects of it. So essentially what our brain will do is it'll start to rewire, in a sense, to let's just take a bicep curls example. I don't know if I can do this right here. So if you make a bicep curl and you squeeze in hard and this is all you do all day long, your brain gets really, really good at doing that.
Yeah.
So that becomes its default pattern. So we got to think of training as a way to make our habitual patterns a habit, right? We want them to become a habit so they become seamless and effortless versus having to think about it, one, from the brain capacity standpoint, but then two, using patterns and strengthening patterns that might not necessarily be helping us achieve whatever goal we're trying to achieve. Like I said, if your goal is to have bigger biceps and come to the gun show well prepared, then of course, go crush your biceps and run the rack of dumbbells. By all means, go ahead. But just know that it's not really going to allow you to progress towards the goal of shooting.
Yeah.
So I have a question, and this may not make sense, and you may have already answered it, and I just have missed it. But doing all of this physical things and training your brain to, like you said, not become in a habit of only doing bicep curls. You want to kind of challenge your brain on that. That, I would think, would obviously make your brain, your mental game, stronger to be able to kind of overcome obstacles a little bit, or am I kind of off track here?
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is kind of working through adversity.
Yeah.
In a way, and also
if you're training it like you're talking about physically, but it's also training you mentally, would that become easier over time?
100%. So essentially what you're doing is making things really difficult on yourself, and you're working through adversity. You're working through a hard scenario, which creates the kind of cliche term of mental toughness.
Yeah.
In a way, if you have a great understanding of movement and you have come to terms with the fact that you love working out, you like doing hard things, it makes getting into competition and having to be put up against a really stressful situation that much easier, because your brain knows how to work with it and then knows how to work through it, versus like getting into this situation that's really tough on you. It's really stressful, yet you don't train all the time. You never put your body through any stress, and the brain's like, we don't know what to do here, so we're just going to shut down.
Yeah.
And it will go to sleep. That's why we have that reticular activating system in our brain. It's to be able to filter that stuff out so we don't overload the brain and make it shut down on us as a protective mechanism once again. Because I do know some people within our shooting community that get really tired before competition.
Yeah.
And they can't drink enough coffee to stimulate them. And that has nothing to do with the essentially the adrenaline and the cortisol and the sympathetic nervous system. It's the fact that you're overthinking everything and you likely don't have a really great way to manage your stress.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's very cool. Holy cow. We got more questions. Okay, this is a good one because we
keep them coming.
How much time do you have, Matt?
I've got an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, blocked off an hour.
This one is from Haas. Haas is was a giveaway winner from last week. And he says a lot of older shooters or people who have shot a lot develop a flinch. Is it at all possible to overcome a flinch from a physical perspective? And we kind of talked about that a little bit in mention in the previous podcast, but we never really went in depth into explaining it, I don't think.
Yeah, so the flinch can come from an altered mental state, essentially like from what we just talked about, of you overthinking things, and it makes you second guess your reaction time as well, and the coordination of the reaction time. Yes. But from a physicality standpoint, we're talking about the actual body, what we see is a overly sympathetically driven grip. I think this is kind of what we were talking about in that episode a little bit as well, was that so a couple different things. If we do a lot of weight training, like going back to the powerlifting question, and we become overly strong in our forearm muscles, it's going to make you grip the gun a lot harder, which is going to create that flinch or that jerky movement. Also, from a lack of confidence standpoint, if you aren't confident in your abilities, the nervous system is going to try and get into that sympathetic state or that fight or flight and really send a lot of blood flow into all the muscles, which is going to make you jerk a lot. It's going to heighten up the nervous system and make it try and like go at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
And because of what again? Say that one more time.
Because of all the blood flow and the neural activity from the sympathetic state. So if you're anxious, you're not confident in yourself, you're fearful, all these things kind of play into that, where we had this anxiety and this fear that builds up. And it can be about our own abilities, but it also could be a fear of the expectations of others.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, there's a lot of times in my own life where I had expectations of others put on me, and I tried to fulfill them, and it causes like a lot of stress, causes a lot of anxiety. It makes you doubt yourself, and all of a sudden you're not confident in your body whatsoever, and you can't make a decision based on your own purpose or values. But then when it comes to movement, it totally shuts all that down, because once again you're overthinking things. But then going back to the flinch and the twitch and everything like that, the nervous system is just so hyper overactive that you can't control any of it. So if you ever think of like, ever seen by somebody with Parkinson's disease, how they got those twitches, that's essentially like an overactive nervous system that they can't control.
Wow.
So that would be not on the same level of that, but that would be an explanation as to why, like, if you have a new shooter, I see it all the time with new shooters, where they go to their first competition, or it's like their first, big match or something, and they get out there and they're like completely everything that we've practiced just goes out the window, and they just are just slinging the gun everywhere.
Well, right. From you as a coach too, they're probably trying not to let you down.
Yeah.
Right. As well, they don't want to make you make themselves feel like a loser in your eyes.
Yeah.
There's that like overwhelming pressure. And as a coach, this is something that you can do with your clients or your athletes, is have this conversation and set realistic expectations for them. Mm-hmm. Right. I'd say it's we have this huge, intense fear of failure. Yeah. I think. And it's just it's culture, it's societally driven. And in this sense of being fearful of failure, we don't ever take action and we don't ever execute. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, we just become paralyzed. Yeah. Right. So we see all those negative ramifications of it, versus like with a lot of the clients that I work with and the athletes I work with out here, I'm like, I'm going to put you into positions I want you to fail, where I know you're going to fail. And that's okay, because we need to, and you're going to. It's if you go into a situation where you've been hyped up as like the all-time best, and we see this with, like, ironically enough, basketball players, because for whatever reason, basketball players have been told they've been the greatest since like the age of 6.
Yeah.
And I say this across the board because it's a common theme that I've worked with over the years. But we get all these high expectations. So the minute they come up against a situation where they can't fulfill it, or not confident in themselves, they can't achieve it, that fear of failure and fear of letting other people down sets in.
Yeah.
And that's where we see all the negative ramifications occur.
Interesting.
One of the things that you did mention about the flinch, aside from the physical tension and like too much blood flow and everything, was something about, I forget the term that you used, but basically you explained it as like a protection mechanism that your brain puts on. If I equated it to like experiencing too much recoil built up over a long period of time, and essentially your brain says no more every time you try to pull the trigger. Is that a legitimate understanding of it, or no?
Yeah, it's like a shutdown mechanism.
Yeah.
Right. If it gets overloaded, and we kind of talked about this in the realm of the body and the brain not really siloing out where stress is coming from. It just understands stress.
Yeah.
So when it fills up that bucket,
Yeah.
the stress bucket gets filled up, whether from a physicality standpoint, like doing too much weight training and you got so much power in your forearm muscles, or you're having a bad time with a relationship with a significant other, or you got financial issues, and all these things just kind of pile up, it's going to shut you down eventually, especially under a highly stressful situation like competition.
Gotcha. Okay, let's see. James Stott says, a lot of older shooters or people who have shot a lot develop a flinch. Is it at all possible to overcome a flinch from oh, never mind. I was like, what? That's the same.
I'm like, this one sounds familiar.
Okay. Kind of following from the previous question, I was going to ask what gym work would have a detrimental effect on shooting, and how much rest between would you recommend between training and shooting?
That's a really great question. So that's kind of tying back to the whole powerlifting question as well, right? Listen, there's no bad movement. It really is no bad training. It's just less optimal. Right. Less optimal training. And what I tend to tell people is I want you to do whatever makes you feel good and whatever you enjoy. Because if you enjoy doing a certain style of training, you're more likely to do more of it and not get bored with it. And honestly, the mere fact that you're moving more is going to be more beneficial for you than not doing anything. Yeah. Okay. Now, when it comes to training specifically for shooting, I developed a program for this as well. But it's a nice mix between balance and coordination training, along with some resistance training through full patterns, so away from isolation. So if I had to put things on the spectrum, the bodybuilding hypertrophy style of training is down here, and like the more, I even hate to use this word, but like the functional training is going to be up on this end. So you want to be more up towards that functional side of things versus the isolation work. Now, rest times between training and shooting, this is going to be something you have to play around with. So I can't disclose people that I work with, but there are some shooters that I work with where I know that they do my training programs in the morning and go shoot in the afternoon. Because once again, you want to be able to assimilate the beneficial patterns that you're gaining in the gym into shooting and get those two skills together versus doing a lot of training for a week or two and then going and shoot. And now it's like your brain can't put the two together. So I personally like to put them as close as possible.
Makes a lot of sense.
If you can make it work like that. Yeah.
Would you recommend doing that in a match?
No. Okay. And there's a reason why behind all that. So from a match standpoint, there's already a lot of pressure and already a lot of stress on the individual, on the body, on the organism. So I tend to shorten it down, and our movement is literally just a movement prep, like a 15 to 20 minutes worth of dynamic movement before match. But then the key point about this is we may do all this movement for 15 to 20 minutes, but then you got to let the nervous system come back down to baseline.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're shooting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to start getting you prepped up around 12:45, 1 o'clock, so that you have some time to come back down and be ready to go. You don't want to go into a match in a super heightened state.
Yes.
You want to come back down to baseline so that you can be smooth.
What's so interesting about what you're saying is that there is, I mean, I don't know, I mean, obviously you know this because you're talking about it, but like my understanding of it is a totally different realm than yours. And and it's amazing for me to see the symmetry between what you're talking about from a physicality standpoint and what I've experienced and know and teach from a psychological standpoint. You know, like from being calm and relaxed to be smooth physically and being at a baseline physically and mentally. I mean, like, it's amazing to me how much those two things have to be completely parallel.
It comes back to another saying, how you do something is how you do everything.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. If you're training in a certain way, it's going to show up in your shooting, and vice versa. If you think in a certain mindset or have a certain perspective of your thoughts or other people's thoughts, or we can even talk about locus of control. Like if you feel that you're a victim to everything, that's going to have a huge, outcome into how you're performing as well, versus taking responsibility over your own body and over your own actions. That has a huge positive ramification versus having that external locus of control where you blame everything that happens to you on somebody else, versus taking that internal locus of control and taking ownership of it and empowering yourself to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Okay, another one. Ron Schwartz from New York says, one of my students from New York just commented, "Don't be weird."
Oh, we got somebody
listen,
remembered
got
one.
our one-liner.
Okay, so Ron Schwartz from New York says, "Is it better for an older person to use lighter weights and more reps, or are power bands better to help prevent injury?"
Okay, so power bands can be in any type of resistance. There could be heavy resistance to them or light resistance to them. So I kind of see two different questions in here. The first one being like that high endurance repetition type of work versus strength and power work, which typically falls anywhere from like 1 to 6 repetitions. However, there's a caveat of this, and Kayla, you know from some stuff that I've given you in the past too, where there might be some very small number of repetitions, but we use them from a lot more of time under tension standpoint.
Yeah.
So you're doing a lot more work through a pattern, and it's taking you longer. That's why the reps are shorter.
Yeah.
So it all depends on the goal. From a high repetition standpoint, it does create a lot more muscular endurance. So the application of that would be towards muscles that have that. The requirement is a lot of muscular endurance, i.e. your shoulder blade muscles, your spinal muscles, like they're always on, versus something like the glutes, the hamstrings, the hip flexors, the quads, that type of stuff. You can get away with more of that strength work, that power work, or that long time under tension work as well. But then the time under tension work is also going to be activating all those stabilizers at the same time, right? So it all depends on what the goal of the situation is and where that person is actually falling on their own athletic continuum. So from a pyramid standpoint, if you have no aerobic capacity, the higher repetition work, the higher time under tension work is going to be good for you. It's going to build a solid foundation that's going to allow you to do more work as you start to build the pyramid up towards the tip of the pyramid. So with that, we get a lot more high capacity work down here below. We can build the strength and the power on top of that, and then go into more of your sports specific skill as we build it up there. Yeah. It's tough to do all this really sports specific training up at the top and then not have the capacity to actually handle what you need to be able to handle up here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So it's, stepwise portion as well.
Okay, Garrett Fuchs. Well, this might be a good question for later, for another podcast. But he says, let's talk visual acuity and how hydration helps and what supplements can help with hydration and absorption. Drinking straight water during shoots runs straight through me and constantly peeing. I mean, I'm sure that you can. That's not your specialty, but I'm sure you could talk on that.
You sure can.
Yeah.
So it's funny. We have a we have a joke about this. It's called like opening your channel.
Yeah.
And it's one of our friends who's a spiritual healer, and she talks about drinking 32 ounces of water first thing in the morning when you wake up to open your channel. And she's talking about her spiritual channel, which I'm on board with.
Right.
But like my science brain goes right to like you're literally opening your channel because you're probably going to pee a half hour later. But that being said, drinking 32 ounces of water first thing in the morning when you wake up, great recommendation. It does hydrate your whole body and will get you ready for the day. But the standpoint of the hydration question is you got to watch because you don't want to overhydrate your body. Like when our cells become overhydrated, not a good thing. So if you're constantly running to the bathroom, you're drinking way too much. Mm-hmm. However, you could drink less, but then add in more electrolytes.
Yeah. And
not Gatorade.
Yeah.
No sugar.
Right.
Okay. So the sugar will actually block the absorption into the body, into the bloodstream. What we come to find out is that our nation is chronically undersalted because of very, very piss poor recommendations by our
literally
FDA. Yeah, literally. Yeah, there was no pun intended there, but that was a good one. I got to use that again. So really, really poor recommendations like our medical system is show shop. I won't get up on that soapbox right now. But we're chronically undersalted, especially with athletes, and especially with shooting athletes who are performing in the heat. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, Kelly, we've been on a number of trips together. You know how hot like Malta was and Italy and all that. It gets, So you're sweating a lot. And you're losing a lot of electrolytes that way. So getting things in like sodium, potassium, and magnesium, those are the big three that'll help rebalance your electrolyte system and actually nourish your cells versus depleting them of those essential nutrients. And the reason why they're so important is not just those three micronutrients, like the minerals, but what happens is they catalyze literally every reaction in your body. And catalyze means just to like jumpstart.
Right.
So if you don't have the building blocks to catalyze any reactions, which means we get slower muscular contractions, we get a lot of brain fog, a lot of lethargy, and you're just not moving well.
Which is detrimental in shooting.
Yeah. Very, very, very detrimental. So don't overhydrate yourself.
Oh, sorry. Do you know of any good additives or supplements, like over-the-counter stuff you can just buy? What would you recommend?
So I can give you the ones that I use, and I actually have one right here. I can just show you. And this is completely safe because it's safe for sport because it literally is just all three of those together. I don't know if you can see this. It's called LMNT Element. Mm-hmm. And it's got sodium, potassium, and magnesium in there as well.
Where do you get those?
Amazon. So I don't know if anybody has heard of Rob Wolf. So Rob Wolf is the guy who wrote the whole Paleo Diet Solution book.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's a researcher. He's a biochemist by nature. So all that stuff is really good. But he did the research on finding that athletes need about 10 grams of salt a day. And it's not just table salt because table salt is sodium chloride, which means you're only getting half of what you think you're actually getting. Whereas that is just pure sodium. And I tell you what, like I started taking that stuff in the morning, one in the afternoon. It was like, wow, I didn't really know what good felt like until I was actually salting myself enough and getting all those electrolytes back in, especially here in Arizona in the summer. But you can pick those things up on Amazon. I have no affiliation with them, so I don't get anything from it.
That's pretty interesting to hear you say that because, I would say like a stereotype of salt. Everybody's like, no salt, sodium's bad. Like, don't eat salt, don't salt your food, don't do this for salt. But that it's cool to be educated about how important it is and how it plays in a factor of how you perform.
Yeah. And it's not just athletes that are chronically undersalted. They're even showing that, well, even more importantly, people that are going in for like cardiac bypasses and heart surgeries, their even recommendations are chronically undersalted. Really? So these people are only getting like 1 to 2 grams. They need at least 5.
Is there a difference between what Kelly's talking about, like overly salted food, like NaCl versus just pure sodium in a drink that you're taking in through that? I mean, talk about the difference between that.
Like if you were to say, like you were to say, we need more salt in our food. I don't want everybody to go out and just like get a salt shaker and just salt everything.
Start salting everything. Yeah, it comes down to a lot of the biochemistry that's happening inside the body and how it's actually being absorbed. I am not, I'll be honest with you, not fully versed in how like the whole sodium chloride chain works inside the body, but it has to do with pressure gradients, so osmotic gradients between the cells, essentially. So what allows more sodium to enter the cell? So a sodium chloride molecule will be a lot bigger, it takes more energy to break down, and then the pores kind of have to be larger. Well, once again, you're not getting the highest amount of sodium you could possibly get if you don't just drink it straight. You'd have to be salting all your food a lot to be able to get some of that in there each day.
So the best thing to
but
do
honestly,
is just
salting,
like get one of those things and drink it. Just drink it.
I found, and I do salt my food because I'm a sweaty person.
Yeah.
I constantly sweat all day long, so I do salt my food. Where you'll notice if you have too much salt is if you get really bloated.
Yeah.
Because it'll start to retain water too much. But that's just kind of like a gauge. And by no means am I trying to provide any type of medical advice here. So take that with a grain of salt.
Right.
Literally.
Literally.
Two good puns.
We're good
that
with
one was
puns,
intentional.
with puns here.
Okay, Haas again, and this is actually the shoe brand I was talking about when we did the interview that I like to shoot in. He says, Ultra Shoes are a well-known low-heel, low-drop shoe company with a wide shoe box. Are there any other brands or specific model of shoes you suggest for athletic activities or shooting?
Since barefoot is illegal.
Is not acceptable, right?
It's
So,
frowned
yeah,
upon.
those Ultra ones are ones I just recommended for Frank Thompson. That was a fun. I've never went online shoe shopping with a dude before, so that was a fun 45 minutes.
Fun times.
I love those shoes. That's what I shoot.
Love you, Frank.
Yeah.
I hope he's listening. He probably doesn't have service out there in Nebraska
Probably
on his
doesn't.
ranch. So,
He's tending to the
that's
cows.
He's hanging out with the cows. Yeah.
or shooting something. Let's be honest. Anyway, completely lost my train of thought there. Oh yes, so there are other couple of shoe companies that are really good. One being a company called Vivo Barefoot.
Yeah.
Now they are a little bit more on the expensive side of things, but they make some really cool shoes that are flat, low heel to toe drop, wide toe box, but then also thinner soles. So the thinner the soles, the better. I mean, last time when we were on the podcast, I talked about my Vans, and I just like them because they're super cheap.
Yeah.
The only downside to them is they do have a thick rubber sole, but they're flat.
Yeah.
Right. So, but we also talked about the fact that you do need the sensory input into the bottom of the foot, and having a thicker rubber shoe is going to decrease that amount of sensory input that's actually getting into the foot as nutrition for your nervous system.
Yeah.
So flat as possible, wide toe box, allow the toes to spread out, and then a real thin sole. So that Ultra, Vivo Barefoot, and then a brand called Zero Shoes, Xeros Shoes, Shoes is another good brand as well. So those are like the top three, I would say.
Yeah.
And I also just got a brand new pair of sandals
Yeah.
as well that are really, really good.
These are the
because
ones with the
many
copper
people,
that you talked about?
yeah,
Yeah.
they're awesome. I just did a 9-mile hike in them in Sedona,
Holy cow.
like
That's
through like gravel and sand and dirt and rocks and through the creek and everything. They held up. It doesn't look like they've been on a hike.
Wow.
And they're awesome. They're like super thin as well. Actually, hang tight.
Who makes them?
Wait.
Uh-oh.
Having technical difficulties.
Uh-oh, we lost.
I think we lost your mic, Matt.
Why wouldn't we be able to hear him? It might be on mute.
I don't know. Is your mic on mute?
Yeah, it's not. It's showing
We
that it's
can't
not
hear anything.
picking up any audio.
How about now?
There we go.
There we go.
Okay,
Now
I'll
just
lose
flip your
the
screen
headphones.
back over.
Totally fine. Okay. Anyway, got super excited about the shoes. So you can see
Holy
how
cow!
thin they
Those
are.
are on a
Wow.
9-mile hike.
Wow.
Yeah,
Those are like just
Amazing.
nothing.
but there's the copper that you were talking about,
Yeah.
and you can see the pattern. So it allows for really good foot function.
Yeah.
Now that being said, I wouldn't recommend that if you're in shoes all day long, go do a 9-mile hike in those things.
Right.
But they're a great way to start training your foot to be more barefoot. So go on like a half-mile or mile hike with them, walk with them in your neighborhood streets is a great way to start with it. But those have been my mainstay, especially here in summer, because the problem with normal flip-flops is you have to grip that thong between your big toe and your second toe. which throws off your gait mechanics. And you were just telling me, Kaylee, that you went and got sandals.
I did. I
that you have to grip with the
got
thumb.
some flip flops I've been wearing around all day. I actually went when we played disc golf the other day. I wore my flip flops.
So I got a
okay
question for you, Matt.
Yeah.
So in my game, when we shoot like overseas, and sometimes in the U.S., when we're shooting feet task, a lot of our courses we're not standing on a concrete pad, and a lot of times it's a very uneven surface. So we could be on the side of a mountain, we could be standing in the middle of tree roots, whatever. And so with that being said, if I wanted to take advantage of something like those Vivo barefoot shoes or something like that, is that something that, because this is why I ended up gravitating towards those Ultra shoes, was because I found that I could get a really good solid platform and connection with the ground and be able to move really well with that, and feel the balance and feel the angle of my feet and everything. But because in the podcast you talked about how it took you 2 years for your feet to change like that, and I'm telling you, some people might listen to that and think that that's kind of weird and stupid and not worth doing, but I'm telling you that I notice a huge difference when I'm more connected to the ground when I'm shooting, a huge difference. Yeah. And so would I be able to notice a difference with something that was very thin profile underneath my feet by just initially going to it right now, or would I have to take the 2 years into working my feet and be able to do that?
So I'm going to give you a little story about myself with this too, because this is coming from somebody who's been barefoot most of his adult life.
Yeah.
And trains barefoot, walks around the house. I'll even walk around our streets kind of barefoot, but I had never in my life done anything close to a barefoot hike. So I did them like a 3 or 4 miler here in Phoenix, in the Phoenix Mountain Preserve, and then that 9 miler up in Sedona. And I reached my limits, right? Yeah. I found out new limits of my own body that I had not stimulated yet. And it was interesting. Like, it took me probably about 3 weeks to adapt to these sandals. Wow. Be comfortable with them. Like, there were some growing pains. Yeah. Like, of course, it's a lot flatter than I was used to for that long distance on that type of uneven terrain. So, of course, my brain and my body weren't necessarily 100% used to it. They weren't adapted to it yet. So I had to take the time, 3 weeks, and I wore them religiously, and my body adapted to it. So to answer your question is, it does take upwards of 10 to 14 months to change over connective tissue in the body. And that just takes a lot of consistent effort. Now, you will start to feel more comfortable in them after about 3 to 4 weeks, because your nervous system will adapt. Yeah. But then as the foot structure, that's what I was talking about. It took me 2 to 3 years to get that foot structure back. Yeah. To actually get the architecture of my foot into a better position.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's never too late of a time to start. Yeah. It's only going to benefit you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go. I really do kind of want to get in a little bit more into that than I was with shooting, because I notice so much of my movement horizontally comes from like lower down in my body, not really using my hands and stuff to move. And so balance is extremely important for me. And then how I'm standing and how I feel the ground is important to me. So, and that's why I've noticed, that's why I went to those shoes without talking to anybody. Just by accident, like, dang, these feel really good when I shoot, and so, but
you're an intuitive guy, David.
What's that?
That you're an intuitive guy.
Yeah. Well, if it's an obvious difference.
But that's what makes you a good athlete, though, too, is you listen to your body.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Very true. Okay, enough of my questions. Let's see. We got... Well, this is interesting. Andrew says, I came across some Merrell shoes that actually reference proprioception in the features. I figured David just made that word up. They are Merrell Trail Glove shoes. Merrell Trail Glove 5S. No, I didn't make that word up, Andrew. But that's cool.
They're referencing it in the shoes?
Yeah, how could that be?
Is that possible to somehow improve proprioception from your feet?
In a way, proprioception, it would make sense if you could feel the ground better, you'd have more of a spatial awareness of where your foot was.
I guess. Yes.
So if they're thin and you can feel the ground beneath you, yes, so this is the difference between marketing and science.
Right.
Is you get companies out there that like to spew a lot of, or cherry pick a lot of science to support their product, that's fine. That's capitalism, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We totally understand that, but people confuse a lot of marketing and science as well. So this is where it's like doing your research, understanding what it is that you're buying versus just, falling into the trap of trusting because they're using big words.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. So proprioception, yeah, great for shooting. It's great to be able to feel the ground. But like if they're claiming proprioception and the sole is this thick,
Not happening. Yeah.
not happening.
He
Now
said they were really thin,
you can
though,
get.
didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said they were really thin.
Oh, if they're really thin, then yeah, by all means.
Yeah.
I mean, you see a lot of these shoe companies. I'm not familiar with those ones in particular, but you see a lot of the shoe companies that are transitioning because you're seeing people waking up to a lot of this stuff now, and a lot of the science is helping support it as well. So a lot of the companies are transitioning over into this more the barefoot style of shoes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, if that's a new product, I'll take a look at them and see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
same.
curious now. Okay. Let's see. Jack says we need to start a podcast called Shoe Prison Shopping for Men.
And women.
Oh, I'd be happy to. We'll get Frank on too. He can be the co-host.
Yeah. Okay, so another friend and student of mine, Curtis Dunbar from around the Seattle area, he says, so damaged joints from sports, i.e. arthritis in knees and ankles, also flat feet. I'm very shoe sensitive, lack of support or too thin drains my energy, and I can't last the day. What do you advise?
Progressive overload. So
I remember
first
this
of
from
all,
a podcast.
Yeah. So it's about doing just a little bit more each and every day, each and every week to allow your foot to adapt. So what it sounds like, and mind you, I have no idea who this is.
Yeah.
But from what it sounds like is you tried to go from being exposed to just cushion to being flat, and of course your feet aren't going to like that. It is going to be very draining, right?
Yeah.
But here's the irony behind this. Is that we cushion the bottom of our feet. So our feet then are only ever exposed to the insoles, to the soft soles of our shoes. And what that does is actually makes your musculoskeletal system have to work harder. Because when you are talking about feeling the ground, another component of this is actually taking some stored potential energy from each step and using that as a recoil into your system.
You're right.
If your body's not getting that and it's being dampened by the cushion of the shoe, everything in and around that area, all the muscles around your foot and the lower leg, the hips, knees, low back, they now have to work harder.
Right.
As well. So like I said, I think I mentioned this in the podcast too, from a progressive overload standpoint, you would want to just go from whatever shoe you're in. I would then, if you're wearing orthotics, take the orthotics out, and whatever time frame that is, like everybody's body's going to adapt a little bit differently to it, so it's hard to put an exact parameter on it. But then just go until you start to feel sore, then put the insoles back in, and then the next day try and go a little bit longer, or the next week try and go a little bit longer. And once you feel like you can get through an entire day in that formation of the shoe, then take the next layer out and progressively start to work your way down.
Good advice.
Because we have a lot of scientific studies too, where you can take arthritic joints and make them non-arthritic again.
Really?
Just by getting movement through them. Yes.
Holy cow. Is this new?
No, it's been around for decades. Nobody.
We're just not talking
No one
about.
talks about it.
No, because surgeons make a lot of money from doing joint replacements.
Yeah.
I know how that works.
So,
All right, so Kaylee's dad asked a good question. He says, is there a particular workout that would help you become consistent at moving your hands and body in coalition?
Hands and body in coalition. Yeah, thanks, Tommy. Essentially anything where you can get your hand attached to a surface, right? So we call this a closed kinetic chain. So when you're standing on your feet, that's a closed kinetic chain for your lower body. Hands, closed kinetic chain would be like in a push-up position, or your hands up against a wall, those types of things. Or if we're holding something like a dumbbell or a kettlebell, and then we're not, like, let's just say pressing it out, and then we're not moving the arm, but we're moving the body around the arm, that's also a closed kinetic chain component for the hands. And that's actually a really good question because, like we said before, the feet are in direct communication with the hips. They actually control how the hips function. the hands control how the shoulders function. So if we don't have a lot of wrist mobility or ability to actually grip and go through our fullest ranges of motion out of the wrist, we're going to lose a lot of control and stability in the shoulder as well.
Wow.
And honestly, wrists are a huge limiting factor for shooting because you guys lock those into very specific positions and different positions per hand as well. So you get stuck in this position, the nervous system adapts to it, and if you never expose it to any other ranges, you do get locked into that. It's tough to break it out of it.
So would you say hip pain is caused from something coming from you're doing wrong something with your feet?
99% of the time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have to chat after this.
Okay.
We'll I always come to you with new problems.
You've got access to me. You know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, do you want to do?
Yeah, I was gonna say we're at about an hour, and I don't want to take too much of your time. So why don't we do something so that so Matt, why don't you tell us what you came up with, your what you're offering, and then for everybody listening right now, we're going to be giving away access for one person to this, and I guess I saw you googling something, so I'm guessing you have a question.
So what we're going to do is like we did last week, we're going to have a giveaway. Whoever gets the question right first, whoever's the first to comment the correct answer, gets a free what Matt is fixing to tell us. So tell us what you got, Matt. Layup. Tell us what you've done just for our audience.
Oh boy. So obviously, I've been in the shooting game for a very long time now, and over the past few years of working with you guys specifically to come up with a lot of limiting factors that are very common amongst shooters. And one of the marks of a master clinician is the ability to recognize pattern, right? So be able to distinguish patterns that we see that are common amongst everyone. So what I did was I put together a program which includes a lot of this talk on the feet and helps direct you in a way to help reclaim the feet as well as the wrist and the hand for very specific movement patterns. And then I put together 2 circuits, an upper body circuit and a lower body circuit, to start working on these limiting factors that I see amongst a lot of shooting athletes. So it's going to be a great place to start to help reclaim your feet, reclaim your hands, and reclaim your entire body. That's going to allow you to empower your performance as well.
So do you have
and fight off injury and pain.
Do you have to have a gym to be able to do these workouts you're talking about? This is just
no gym is necessary
at home,
right
can
now.
Be at the gym.
This is kind of a combination of that movement prep stuff that I was alluding to that I take a lot of you guys through out on the road in competitions, but then also it's stuff that you can do to help to learn to control your joints against gravity, which is super, super valuable and beneficial.
Okay, cool.
As opposed to loading it up right away. So it's going to give you that nice base, that foundational level of performance.
Yeah, so this is a quote unquote shooter, a little bit specific.
Shooter-specific training program.
Okay, all right. Are you guys ready for the question? It's a pretty easy question, but I thought it was interesting. So, the question is...
Is this something... Never mind, I'm not going to ask
that.
What? It would give away the answer.
Okay. Who is the oldest athlete to win a medal in the Olympics, and what game or what discipline did he play? Like, what event was he in, or she?
Are we going to say how old they were?
No, I just asked who.
Oh.
Who is the oldest Olympian to win a medal, and what event did they play? It's about a 30-second delay, so we have to wait.
That's okay. I'm curious to know what the answer is, too.
What if Matt wins his own prize?
I don't see Matt Googling.
Nope.
Also, can you guys comment if you can hear all of our dogs in the background? Because I'm curious.
Yeah,
I can.
Dog is
Can you, Matt?
Crazy.
Yeah.
She's going absolutely. She is losing her mind back there. Okay.
We have a winner.
Can you read it?
JB Wheel and Caden Fitch.
They said the name, but I need to know what event they did. Name and event.
Oh, that's true.
Name and event, guys. Name and event. Yes, we can hear
They
the
can all
dog.
hear the dogs. So, a couple people are saying Greg Louganis for diving.
An Olympian?
Apparently. Running deer single shot.
Whoa.
What?
I think they got it.
So we have.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, here's the. It's a tie
How is it a tie?
Uh-oh.
because JB Wheel and Caden Fitch both came up with it at the same time.
But it's this guy.
Yeah, that's what they said. They both said Oscar Swan.
Mm-hmm. I don't know
And-
what running deer single.
Running deer is the name of that Olympic game. Back in the 1920s is what they called the.
Oh, gotcha. Cool. It doesn't say that on here. So, okay, we have a tie.
Okay.
We need a
How do we-
tiebreaker question, or
Tiebreaker question between JB Wheel and Caden Fitch.
okay, Matt, do you have a question?
Yeah, let's come up with a good question.
Good question for a tiebreaker.
Oh, boy. Okay. I would like to know how many bones and how many joints are in the foot.
Oh,
How many bones and how
Foot.
many joints are in the foot? Tiebreaker question between Caden Finch and who?
and JB Wheel.
And JB Wheel. All right, Caden and JB, it's on.
That's a good question.
That is a good question. My dog's losing her mind.
I'm getting a new puppy soon.
You're getting a puppy?
Yeah, he talked about it before.
New corner puppy.
Oh, yeah. You told me that.
When do you get it?
I'm starting to look now.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. It's in the very near future.
Yeah.
Lily's 10.
Just
so-
be prepared.
I get...
Ron Schwartz is the winner. He says a lot.
Okay, Caden said something.
Okay, Caden Fitch says 28 bones and 30 joints.
Is this correct? It is not
No.
correct.
They both said
They
that.
both said that. It's not correct, guys.
Uh-oh.
Somebody's Google source is wrong.
What's that?
He said the Google source
Somebody's
is
Google
wrong.
source is wrong.
It is not 28 bones and 30 joints. Please try again.
Oh, that's a good question then if Google didn't even get it right.
I'm gonna go get Lily.
Okay.
Oh wait, did they see something else?
No, not yet. Go get her and bring her on so everyone can know the culprit. We're going to get the culprit of all this noise.
Uh-oh, here we go. Oh, this is great.
Meet Lily.
Oh,
the
where is
culprit.
it? Oh,
Okay, we got new ones.
So, Nate says 11 billion.
Caden
So,
said something.
Caden says 26 bones.
And I'm assuming 30 joints. Correct?
got it.
There we go.
Yep.
Caden Fitch is the winner. I believe Caden's from California.
I don't know.
I think so.
Oh wait, JB said. So it is 26 bones and 30 joints, correct? Okay, cool.
Nailed it.
26 bones, 30 joints in 1 foot.
One foot.
Wow.
That's a lot of things to work out.
So I will accept that answer. There is technically 33 joints if you include some other joints in the foot.
Well,
But
that would change our winner.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Because JB Will actually said 26 bones and 33 joints.
Okay, they both get it then.
That's good effort. They're trying hard.
That's very good effort. Because much like anything else with the human body, there's a gray area.
Yeah, yeah.
Like who's
Okay.
counting what? So
Okay, so they both win.
then,
So Caden and JB, y'all both won. Y'all did some hardcore research in a very fast amount of time.
Yeah.
You're both winners. We just like to make y'all, we like to make y'all search for these answers. That was a good question,
That was
Matt.
good. Yeah, very good question.
Very good.
Cool. So how would we get them in touch with you to be able to do that?
So I guess I'll send you guys a link
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
for it as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
we'll
anybody
set that
else
up.
who wants to purchase the workout that Matt's talking about, we will post our link or his link that you can go to and take you straight to it. And it's downloadable, I'm assuming.
Downloadable.
Yeah,
Yep,
downloadable.
it's all online.
You'll have
There's a bunch of
access
videos,
to access to the
descriptions,
videos, exactly how to do the workouts.
links to
that
all
we're
different
talking
kinds of things.
Do it.
Links to all different articles that I wrote
Yeah.
and some suggestions on different things like the shoes, the toe spreaders, and then how to incorporate all that stuff into the actual exercises. So,
Very
Cool.
cool. That's very cool.
So Caden and JB will get with you because you're the free winners. Everybody else, if you want to purchase this workout, stay tuned and we will post a link for that workout.
Caden says in all caps, "I'm so excited," with a bunch of
With
exclamation
like 40
points.
exclamation
Awesome.
points.
that
Very
just
cool.
made my day.
JB said, "I'm exhausted."
My brain hurts too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, I just want to say for everybody that if you like, this is Matt. What is the price going to be?
$49.99 for the
$49.99. That's
So
super good price, y'all, for what exactly he has put together. I
Yeah.
mean, I have personally done his workouts, multiple of them, even ones that I don't like that he makes me do. But I can see a huge difference in how my body performs and how I'm able to control my body when I want to control it. So I highly, highly recommend at least looking into it because $49, I mean, that's, you have it forever. So.
Yeah, this is what I will say. A lot of these people watching right now are my students, and for a third of the price of a 1 hour lesson, you can get something that's going to be with you through all of those lessons. Mm-hmm. So, or for every lesson from now on and previously that we've worked on together. So, this is definitely something that's very valuable, and being able to work on, compartmentalizing different components of shooting and bringing them outside of shooting and to work on them is really important. So this is a really cool opportunity, and thank you, Matt, for putting it together.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah,
And then
my
also,
pleasure.
I mean, if they buy this workout and they're like, hey, I really like that. I feel like I want a more personalized workout. They can always get in contact with you to get a fully 100% personalized workout for them, right? Whatever struggles they're having.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, so this is a great starting point, like I said, based on a lot of the common functional limitations that I see. But you could hit me up on Instagram or my email address, and you can talk about doing a full online. If you're remote, we do a full-on virtual consultation. Essentially, how it works is I send videos of movements I would like you to perform. Mm-hmm. You send them back to me. I analyze them based on whatever things are that you need to work on and your goals. We develop a program to work on them from there. And it could be as long as you want it to be. So minimum of 12 weeks, but then want to go for years, we can. I'm lifelong partners.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Awesome.
Here's what we'll do. For those of you that want to, because I can't, some people are asking us to put the link on the video right now. That's not really possible. But what we can do is, I would imagine that all of you are probably signed up for our MailChimp account. And if you're not, do that by going to Beyond the Podium website. And it's pretty self-explanatory to sign up for that. It's pretty much at the bottom of every page. Sign up for that, and I'll send an email out to everybody that's subscribed in there with the link and how to go about purchasing it. So that way you'll all have it in your email. So that'd be good.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sounds
very
good.
cool. Well, Matt, we're gonna have you down here.
Yeah.
And
Let's
do
make
a
it
clinic
happen.
together,
Hey,
'cause that would
things-
It would
really
be
fun.
awesome to do a shooting clinic together
Yeah.
with you, like
Oh, yeah.
in the mornings
definitely.
or afterwards, you do your training with them, and then we do our training with them. Then we all eat good food, be a good time.
Yeah.
And start to see the connections.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, is actually feeling it and experiencing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
I know
Matt.
you guys make some good food down there too. So
Oh yeah,
excited
we got
about
the southern cooking down here.
that. Yeah, I'm all for that. Don't you worry.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Alrighty.
No, I think that's good. We'll let you get back to work.
Everybody's saying thank you.
Yeah, everyone's saying thank you. So
Oh, thank you
yeah,
guys.
thanks for joining
Appreciate
us.
it. Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Very cool.
Namaste.
Yep. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Yeah,
Of course.
thank you, guys.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you,
Enjoy
Matt.
the rest of your week.